Well, good afternoon, folks. I've got just about 12:30, so why don't we get this kicked off? Welcome. Thank you all for joining us on our next installment of our NER Coffee online meetings. Appreciate everybody coming along. Everyone should have their mics muted and their video off. If you don't, please make sure you do so. That would be greatly appreciated. And as we go through this, anybody that has any questions today, please type them on the chat function. You'll notice somewhere on your screen should be a little chat bubble. You click on that and there's a place where you can type questions in. If you type your question in there, then we'll moderate through those towards the end of the meeting. As I've mentioned in the previous ones, we'll try to do as many of our pre-scheduled sessions via our online meeting platform here as we can. There are 2 more scheduled beyond this one, and then stay tuned for the rest of them after I have a chance to talk to our speakers and schedule things. One thing I would ask is that at some point during the course, either during the presentation today or after the presentation, if you would send an email to Cindy Pascal at the university, letting her know that you were in attendance today. That'll do 2 things. It'll let Cindy put together a list of who was here and also give her your email addresses to send you the certification. Everyone will get a half a credit hour of category 1 credits for participating today. One other thing, as always, in my opening remarks, I ask for volunteers to participate in our planning committee. And this is no different, even though we're online. Next year at our annual NER Coffee, whatever form that will take, will likely be the last one that Cindy Pascal and Louis Moran will be able to join us. They'll both be retiring shortly after that. So some new blood, some new ideas and thoughts and additional help on the committee becomes a little bit more important than it usually is. So anyone who's interested, willing to help us out, participate in the committee, please shoot me an email, give me a call, let me know, and we'll see if we can make that happen. And I guess for now, so I don't cut into our speaker time any more than that, I will be quiet. And our speaker today is Patty Cormier, the director of the Maine Forest Service. And Patty, it's all yours.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray. Thanks for the introduction. And hi, everybody out there in computer world or phone world. I appreciate this opportunity to go over outcome-based forestry because, believe it or not, it's coming on 20 years that outcome-based forestry has been on the books. And it's a good time, I think, to review, and I'm sure many of you are well versed on it, but good time to see where we at with OBF, what it is, who it is, what the requirements are, etc. And I welcome any of your questions. So I think Ray is going to advance the PowerPoint. Hopefully everybody can see that. Is that correct, Ray? Everyone's looking at the PowerPoint?
Yes, Patty, everybody should see the same screen that you and I are looking at. Okay,
so you're advancing them?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so so for the second slide, why outcome-based forestry? You know, outcome-based forestry was enacted to address the aspects of the Forest Practices Act that prevented the wise use of scientific forestry in the best interest of Maine. And really, As we know, Forest Practices Act, when it came into play, a lot of stakeholders were at the table. Some got what they want, some didn't get what they want. But the true nature of its development was not necessarily about silvicultural science, the science of forestry. What it did do was it satisfied the public, and it did curtail the creation of large rolling clear cuts and did assure regeneration. But outcome-based forestry addresses those issues as well and other public concerns. So the Forest Practices Act, so OBF members are exempt from the Forest Practices Act, so they're not exempt from other laws, just so everybody knows that. So, so I'm not seeing the slides changing. So I'll just keep continuing on. So the legislative history of OBF is that in 2001, the 120th legislature, in response to the policy debates of the 1990s, established the outcome-based forestry program and statute. And it was established with a sunset date and an acreage cap. So in 2007, the acreage cap was removed, but the sunset date was extended. And in 2012, the sunset date was removed. At this point, 2 landowners joined, and that was Irving Woodlands and the Bureau of Parks and Lands, because the uncertainty had been removed. So the current, so when it was set up, there can be 6 members in outcome-based forestry. So now there are currently 4. So there's Irving Woodlands, who joined in 2012. They renewed in 2018. Bureau of Parks and Lands, same thing, 2012, renewed in 2018. 7 Islands in 2017, and Katahdin Forest Management in 2015. So as part of the statute, there's a technical panel that is governor appointed. It's voluntary, unpaid panel. I very much appreciate these panel members because they're chosen for their particular expertise. So later on, I'll be talking about the criterion in the agreement for the landowners. And so the point of the panel is to hopefully have a panel member that is well-versed in, has a particular strength in some of those criteria. And I think all the panel members are, in a broad sense, are very well versed on all the principles and criterion, but some have particular strengths. So this panel works with the Maine Forest Service and to implement, monitor, and assess OBF agreements. And also another panel member is the ACF Legislative Committee. So they are the public panel member as well. So the panel members and the panel itself, they're key to how OBF works. The panel members and the landowners must agree on desired outcomes and develop a method for determining how those outcomes are attained, as well as a system for reporting those outcomes to the public. So the panel assesses whether the practices applied provide at least the equivalent forest and environmental protection as provided by the rules and regulations. So in the 6th slide, there are 9 principles which outcome-based forestry landowners must address. And so I mentioned, oh, Ray, if we could back up to the panel members again. So here you can see who's on the panel members, on the panel. And again, I love these folks. They're very devoted, and that's a strong core of science right there. I will mention, since doing this PowerPoint a little while ago, Chuck Simpson has since retired, so he is no longer on the panel. And a little advertisement here, if anyone is interested in being on the panel, please let me know. We're always looking for a wide range of interests to be on the panel, because we have to. It's what supports the panel and gives it credibility. Okay, so there are 9 principles which OBF landowners must address, such as soil productivity, water quality, timber supply, aesthetic impacts, biological diversity, public accountability, and also economic, social considerations, and forest health. So I'll talk about it a little bit more coming up, but each landowner is different. So how they address these principles aren't necessarily the same for each one. And again, it's about the landowner meeting with the panel, everybody deciding on what's appropriate. Okay, so the next slide. So adverse impacts of the Forest Practices Act addressed by outcome-based forestry. So again, the definition of clear cutting in FBA was designed to create a landscape that the public was accepted, and which is good. You know, it satisfied the need. And again, it's just more about outcome-based forestry, using, looking at the stand condition, the topography, the ground itself to decide on how to treat it, as opposed to prescriptive FPA requirements. So again, you know, the clear-cut definition of Forest Practices Act really had no strong basis in science, and it does impact seed tree harvests, thinnings, any other and other silvicultural applications. And then the cost of avoiding clear cutting has administrative costs and adverse forestry impacts, and fragmentation. I'm going to show you an image showing the fragmentation due to FPA. And there's always unintended consequences on the landscape, which were caused by FPA. And, you know, I've seen this so many times. Practicing proper silviculture can violate the FPA. You can have a nice seed tree cut, and because of you know, you're below the 30 square foot threshold, and you know, FPA requires that 250 zone or the acreage match, and that doesn't, you know, in a lot of cases, why leave that separation zone? It's just a prescription, essentially. So in this image, you can see where low quality hardwood and beech were removed, and it's down to, I believe this was 25 square feet. So it's 40 acres, so that would be a Cat 2. So that would require 40 acres around it, at least 250 foot wide for a buffer. So if you have this 40 acres around it that are of the same condition, that's a case for why leave the stand that way when you can apply science and silviculture to it. So that's just an example. I've seen a lot of that. Okay, so this is the slide. So you can see on the left the pre-FPA rules, and then this just shows post-FPA the fragmentation. So you probably have similar stand conditions, but you have fragmentation on the right. And just to give you some numbers, before outcome-based, there was about 6 to 7 million cords per acre per year. 6 to 7 million cords per year on 300,000 acres that were harvested. After OBF, it was the same cords, but on 500,000 acres. So they're really, it was more, so before OBF, just you had that concentration. And then after OBF, and in those numbers also, that includes non-OBF participants only. But the response to FPA was significant increase in OSRs and high grading and higher cost per unit of wood. Okay. So on this slide is a comparison of the top one. The harvest is following the topography, the soil conditions, just the stand conditions. So it's about the science of the stand conditions. So a tolerant hardwood stand regenerating to diseased beech. So you can see on the bottom slide that under FPA, you would have to leave those yellow hash marks separation zone. And that's just an example of from a silvicultural standpoint, what's the, there's no justification really for leaving those separation zones unless under FPA it's a regulatory requirement. So the requirements of OBF, so as I said earlier, every landowner is different, and every landowner has to develop this set of acceptable objectives. And the panel that has been approved by the governor goes through this with the landowner. That's the best part. It's about the communication of it, working together on it, and agreeing on these objectives. And these objectives must be met to address the sustainability standards and, of course, comply with all forestry related laws. So the Forest Service field observations and in-depth information is used to develop an annual report by the panel that goes in front of the legislature. So the Forest Service district foresters, Randy Lagasse up north, Dan Jacobs up north, Michael Richards in Western Maine, Julie Davenport. Those are some of the district foresters that are out there in the summer, and they've got sheets, inspection forms that they're reporting on. They're meeting with the landowner, looking at the harvest, looking at their plans, and going out and doing field checks. So as far as transparency, all the agreements, objectives that have been designed with the panel, the annual reports, they're all on the Maine Forest Service website. And annually, the legislature is given an annual report that is also open to the public. And what is good is this year, a report was given to the legislature, and in former years, they necessarily didn't really request it. So it was good this year that they are getting involved as well. And landowners have, every time they're asked, they accommodate requests for field visits. And panel members meet field visits or office visits a couple or a few times a year to, just to keep track of things. These landowners are very much more monitored than landowners that are not in the OBF program. So again, the process is panel meetings, field visits, review certifications. So panel members do see certification audit reports, and I don't know if I added before that it's required that landowners and OBF be third-party certified. Some of them are in a couple of certification programs. So also panel members will go on the certification audits to observe, not to affect anything, but to just observe. And like I said, we also observe the audit reports. Then the measures of success. I think the measure of success is that objectives are being met. There's good communication going on with members and the panel members. And the certification audit is matched to the state sustainability standards. So attainment of explicit set of outcomes, that essentially hasn't happened. That's technically someone could not be, if they weren't certified, that this would be a special set of outcomes. And like I said, that has not been used at all. Or, yeah, anyway. So benefits to the state. The big benefit is knowing that there's a lot of oversight and a lot of science going on in the forest, I think. Also, the state resources within the Forest Service can focus more on education and outreach, and reduce paperwork requirements, allowing for more focus on customer service in response to other information. And the effects of management, it's less command and control regulations, and it helps us determine the appropriate level of regulatory oversight needed to ensure sustainability of the forests. Next slide. So benefits to landowners, I would encourage folks to talk with OBF members and their foresters. You get a real picture of how well they're, what they benefit. But, it's the silvicultural benefits. I've heard the foresters say they feel like they have the freedom to practice real silviculture. And there's better operational efficiencies. There's less road work, less cost, less, due to less road work, you have less crossings, less water buffers needed, and less administration. And that, I believe that's it. So that's just a real quick snapshot. Anyone have any questions? I couldn't have answered everyone's questions.
So far, it seems that you did, Patty.
Wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, any questions, folks? Please feel free to type a message there on the chat bubble. And well, if no questions, thank you all. Patty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
There you go. Can you see those, Patty?
Hold on.
First one is, what are some measurable standards that are being used by some of the folks in the program?
So, let's see. I'll take, for instance, I'm looking at Irving's agreement. So, look at one of the criterion is economic development. So they're using, their wording is provide opportunities to enhance economic development in their area, consistent with their economic success, including direct and indirect employment, forest product sales, and recreational opportunities. So when you look at that, that's a good question. It's about based on what they've said to succeed for that objective. We look at, okay, you said you're going to improve direct and indirect employment. What are the numbers for that? Forest product sales, what are the numbers? Recreational opportunities. So that's, we'd get with them and see what their numbers are. So it's not, it's outcome based. So they tell us how they're going to do it, and then we look at when we meet with them, what are the numbers for that? Does that make sense, Bill? And then Jim said, any problems or tweaks that you'd suggest? Well, I've only been doing this for less than a year, so I guess I'm going to use wiggle words on that one. And at this point, I don't see that. I think any tweaks would be with the legislative committee. I would much rather have more involvement from them so that it doesn't create bills. But I'd have to get back to you on that one, Jim. But thanks for asking, though.
Any other questions, folks? Okay, this presentation at some point here in the fairly near future will be available online, likely a link from our NERCoffee website, and hopefully a link as well from the National Coffee website. Once we get those set up, figured out, and available, we'll let everyone know. But because we need to track who participates, the only way we can award credits is if everybody here today sends an email to Cindy, and she put her information on the chat here. Then everybody that participates today will get the half-hour credit for this. Patty, do you see that other question from Melanie there?
For the most part, I do. For the most part, it's both FSC and SFI. I think those are the only two that our participants use. And FSC more than SFI. Or actually, I think they're all SFI. So I think they're all FSC and SFI.
Okay. No, there's one.
So yeah, that's an important question, and that's been on the radar. And there's actually some really, really good studies going on with respect to drainage amount, stream flow effects, temperatures. So there's like I said, there's a few few reports going on as far as stream temperatures go. So we don't know about that yet. And Don just put on that he's right that oh, you don't see that, but they have to abide by all the shoreline zoning rules still. But there is a study going on, and we're looking at the effect of clear cuts in general on temperatures and stream flow. So to be determined on that one.
Okay, folks. Again, I thank everyone. Patty, thank you very much for
You're welcome.
If there's any other questions, send out an email. Patty, I'm sure, is willing to answer questions as they come via email as well.
I will.
And again, thank you very much. Don't forget to send your email to Cindy so you can get your certificate in via email. Thank you all. Be safe. Stay tuned for more announcements for upcoming workshops. Take care.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Patty.